Hey, welcome everybody to a special J&J Dissect. We're once again joined by the author, T.W. Brown. What's going on, everybody? Happy New Year 2018. We are glad to be back, and we're glad to have once again our buddy T.W. all the way over from Washington State joining us over
Oregon.
here.
A little south, Oregon.
Oregon, sorry, forgot.
Yeah,
Not
right
all,
on the board.
Not all Seahawks fans live in Washington, right?
Yeah.
But hey, thanks for joining us again. And our tonight's special is we're going to be going over some of your top 5 zombie films.
Yeah, I'm actually really stoked about this. When James said that this was going to be a topic and would I be interested, it was like, man, you can't put enough excitement in an email to say just how into it I was about the idea. Because I mean, obviously, this is how I make a living. So. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and to be able to talk about the ones that I consider my favorites. That's I can't pass that up.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. I'm so happy that you decided to join us, man.
And of course, with James' extensive knowledge on domestic, foreign zombie films, semi-zombie films,
yeah,
quasi-zombie films, zombie was said inside of some sort of sentence in there. I'm sure you two will be able to have some sort of deep conversation in there. So hopefully our viewers also enjoy the genre as much as all of us do here. Your guys' level is on expert. Mine's a little bit on the novice side, but try to stick around as best I can. But before we go and jump into the conversation, there's a few announcements. Brand new year. We're going to kick off our level 2 charity drive here pretty soon. We're just finalizing the details. But the charity that we're going to be representing this year is going to be the Humane Society. So we chose this because so many of our little furry loved ones are, rescues from the Humane Society, and we want to give back and give voices to, these little lovable creatures that necessarily don't have their own voice. But we're just finalizing some of the pictures and phrasing and the charity. But if you guys can donate, we still have our link down for Macon Foundation Suicide Prevention. We're going to keep that up. Speaking of fur babies, there you go, right there on the screen. How can you not want to, save that little puppy right there? But we're gonna keep that link up. We're gonna change up their website here and update all our links on YouTube going forward and our Twitch channel going forward for Humane Society. That'll be coming out shortly. And I'm trying to think what else we have for announcements. Over on my end, we'll be moving pretty soon. So if you notice, my screen setup is a little bit different. We're just kind of hanging out in my front room right now. We're packing up a lot of things, so beginning of February we'll be moving. So starting next month it'll be a little bit different setup. So kind of bear with us as we kind of rearrange everything and configure everything. Also, our website might be going down for a few hours here or there, or maybe a day, as we're shifting servers, updating servers with GoDaddy. So hopefully that goes well. Fingers crossed, everybody, as I try to attempt that on my end. Other than that, we're going to have some great zombies, Walking Dead stuff coming on. There's a few big announcements that James and I will be around for the next couple of weeks before the mid-season premiere again. I believe that's February 25th, right, James?
24th.
24th? Close.
Yes, sir. Actually, you might be right. My calendar disappeared somewhere, but whenever the Sunday is, I think it's the 20. You might be right, Jay. It might be the 25th, but you actually are right.
Yeah.
Good job, Jay. Look at you.
Hey, I know things.
Yeah.
Other than that, guys, per the usual, this is a charity-driven website. Videos, 100% of the ad revenue goes towards charity. You guys can click on the ads. I don't know if I could phrase it like that. We can't take us click on the ads. What I can tell you is that all the revenue from those ads goes towards charity. So do with that information as you will. You guys can't click on the ads. You can always help us out by liking, subscribing, and following us on all the social medias: Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, especially on YouTube. Like and subscribe. And a special shout out to a mystery person who donated, by the way, for our final long haul there for our level 1 charity drive. Had a peculiar little name, That T.W. Brown might know was from one of his books, who donated $500, which pushed us above and over our limit. And thank you to our fellow viewers. I know Dixie, I saw you donate, and I know one of our viewers. I can't remember the name right now, but thank you very much for donating. It's amazing. So excited for 2018. So excited for bigger things coming ahead for us, and so excited to jump into T.W. Brown's top 5 zombie films. So go ahead and take it away, James.
So we shared a couple of our choices and I was not surprised that we had a lot of similar ones. Yeah. I was surprised at the one that was missing because even though it's a relatively new entry and you said it was one of your top foreign, I'm going to go right into almost leading off with the one that has really impressed me, and that's Train to Busan. That I clicked it on Netflix just completely at random based on the trailers, which those are always so misleading anyway. A lot of times the best part of the movie ends up being in a trailer. But even my wife, while we were watching that, even she was just blown away. She was like, "That was really cool," when they pour through the glass and that sort of thing. They pulled off what World War Z failed at doing. Thank
you.
We'll talk about. I think we can save the not top.
Yeah, that is like a bad word between me and Jay is World War Z.
Yeah,
but let's let you continue with Train to Busan.
I love movies that that take things and because at first I was like, okay, so this, instead of snakes on a plane, we're gonna have zombies on a train. All right, and low bar. I had a low bar set for this, but as it continued to roll and it just got better and better and better, I was like, wow, this was incredible. These people know what they're doing. This is the market now. They've got it down. And I was glued to it. I've watched it with my son since then. I think I've seen it a few times now. And every time I've watched it, I always catch a little something different or a little something new. But it was just so well done,
What was that? What was the title again for the viewers?
Train to Busan.
Train to Busan. Busan. So yeah, that was and that, granted, it's not going to knock my number one all time off the list, but I have to say that for new movies, that definitely takes the cake for me.
And to touch upon what you said earlier, when we first did the show, we did it in May. I didn't watch Train to Busan until this summer, because I've been binging on Shameless and rewatching Walking Dead, and just watching what I have in my collection over and over again, like a dork. And I stumbled upon Train to Busan this summer, and we talked about my favorite foreign films in the last one, Jay. Yeah. Train to Busan is, like he said, snakes on a plane is zombies on a train. They actually do have a zombies on a plane. It's called Flight of the Living Dead. Here you go. But this movie was so intense, and like Todd said, it's the fact that these zombies were like relentless, and the turn rate was so fast, and it was just like such a great concept, and and it had the element that I love it in a movie. Even though there was hope at the end and you thought that, they got away, it really didn't. They were just on a train. So it was like, yeah, you survived this train ride, but you're going to a world full of, this enemy that you spent the whole time trying to evade. So I totally agree with Todd on this one. If I would have seen this, it would have snuck in to my top 3 foreign zombie movies of all time easily. But it's my favorite Asian zombie movie ever. And that's saying a lot, because there's so many, Asian zombie movies. Tokyo Zombie, Junk, Stacy, just Office of the Dead. There's so many, Asian zombie films that I've seen that this movie just completely destroyed. So it's like, when I saw it this summer, I totally agree. I've seen it about 3 or 4 times now. My daughter she wanted to watch it, and her mom didn't want her to watch it. I think it's because her mom was scared. And I said, of course I'm gonna step in. I'm gonna watch it with you. So we watched it together, and she was just like, if they had this in English, it'd be even better. But we still enjoyed it. So totally agree with you. The great choice, very unique choice too to put on the list. So I got to give you that. Definitely check it out to our viewers. It's on Netflix. If you have a Netflix account, check it out. Train to Busan, Busan.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this one, you've missed out because
Yes.
it just there's really not anything that I feel in the last 3 years that can compare with it.
Not even close. That's
I don't
absolutely
think
correct.
there's anything in the last 3 years that can compare with it. I'm sort of hitting around on my list because I want to save the best for last because I've got to.
Yeah, of course. You got
But so the next one I want to do is it's the remake of Dawn of the Dead with Zack Snyder. Now there were a lot of people mad about sprinting zombies and everything else like that, and there it is. Now, and also, if you've got the DVD or the Blu-ray or whatever, watching those special features, watching the guy that is in the gun shop,
Yes, Andy's gun store. Yep.
Yeah, that is absolutely worth the time. It just brings so much more depth to what's going on, and it hooked me when Sarah Polley, when that girl gets thrown down the hall and then pops back up. That the movie could end right there, and I still would have given this one of my top 5 because that was just so well done. It was just absolutely fantastic, and the fact that they have all these nods just in the opening scene to the original, to the original classics. They've got the gas station that gets talked about in Night of the Living Dead. They've got the WGO1 helicopter flying in low over the city. It's. And then, you've got cameos by Savini and everybody else that are, popping up. Yep. And it just really made, for somebody who loved the original, to watch it as something completely different and not look at it as an actual remake. They used the title. I think that's pretty much where it ends, is that they used the title and there was a mall. Other than that,
Different. Correct.
Yeah, it's a remix, not a cover.
Yes.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly. And what I got a kick out of was, like I said, all the controversy about, sprinting zombies. And it's like, look, you're going to have to blame the Brits for that because 28 days later
first
is what brought that to the forefront, and so people had that to deal with. Plus, it's a modern era. People aren't afraid of the slow, plodding zombie, but, throw a bunch of track stars and soccer players out there and, get chased by them, and you're going to be concerned. I know that I'll last about 8 seconds. So, it's because I don't, my runs are timed with calendars, not stopwatches. So,
my runs are timed with gasoline in cars.
Yeah.
So, I just thought, if the slow ones come out, it's like, I could probably last a little, but the fast ones, it's like, you know what? I might just take the bullet there. It's like, you can't do that, man.
Special memorabilia for TW Brown. These are 2 of my 4 tickets that I told you about. 319 and 323 of 2004. This goes up here where your poster is right on the other side of this, but this is like my zombie area. This is my
zombie wall.
My zombie wall that's slowly growing thanks to Jay having dinner parties with the Walking Dead crew. But I totally agree. And with TW Brown, just a little trivia where he said they had cameos. David Embry as Roger from the original Dawn, and of course the great Ken Foree as Peter was also in the movie, as well as Tom Savini. It just had the cameos, but like Todd said, it was a completely different movie, and it was, in my opinion, and why it was number 2 on my list, it was my Dawn of the Dead. I watched my dad's Dawn of the Dead from 1978. So I actually got to watch this Dawn of the Dead. And then my son gets older, that will be, his dad's Dawn of the Dead, and hopefully they, make something else for him. So, being able to go to the movie theaters and to have that experience and to see something different, it just really stuck out for me. And like Todd said, and like Jay said, you can get away from the soul zombies and you can formulate a defense to them. You cannot do that if they are running faster than you. No. You just can't. So
you will get tired before they do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, and there's some really great moments in that. I mean, when they're up there playing Shoot the Celebrity.
I love that.
I mean, that was hilarious. That's hilarious. And it's still every once in a while I'll be watching Modern Family and just go, no.
Yeah, that's not your. Yeah, you're supposed to, exactly.
I mean, I'll watch, the remake, and then a couple weeks later, the wife and I'll sit down to watch a couple of comedies and just sort of relax, and we'll watch Modern Family, and he'll come up and I'll be like, I have to readjust my head to, get it away from the amazing portrayal that he did, in that movie. I mean, it's such a different, such a different person. I think the movie would have done even better, had it come out, with all the popularity that Modern Family has had as a comedy and everything else like that. I think that the movie people would have flocked to go see it just to see him do something so completely different. Yep.
And they had Mekhi Phifer in there, Vin Rames. Yep. Had some pretty big celebrities in that movie.
And when you guys mentioned cameos, can you refer to the cameos? Like, why were the cameos necessary? Like, what importance are those cameos to other zombie films?
Okay, so Steve Embry as Roger from the 1978 Dawn of the Dead. Roger was one of the 4 survivors in the mall. Mm-hmm. He was the military man. He was the first military man that we met in Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, he was the one at the shootout at the low rent apartments, and then he's also the one that gets bit on the leg.
Yes, he was the first actual survivor to die in Dawn of the Dead. And it was heart-wrenching because he was paired with Peter, and Peter was like this stoic, military, SWAT guy, and Roger kind of looked up to Peter, and they actually bonded throughout the movie. So when, obviously Ken Foree was also a cameo. So they had Roger and they had Peter, and another cameo they had was actually one of the greatest line in a zombie movie, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. And it was said by Ken Foree as the cameo. So it was a lot of shout outs to the original Dawn of the Dead, including bringing back the original cast. So Ken Foree as Peter, and David Embry as Roger.
Yeah. And then, of course, Tom Savini, who was the effects guru behind all the stuff that we see in Dawn of the Dead, and for him to be the police officer, the one that they're watching when they say that there's a twitcher, he's the cop that's talking about it, going, hey, put that one down over there. And Savini is, for anybody that saw horror movies in the 70s and early 80s, you saw his work. I mean, Friday the 13th and everything else like that, so for him to step up and do that cameo scene was, it's just nice, because he goes from being the supervillain in the original Dawn to being a police officer in the remake. So because he was one of the raiders. Yeah, he was the lead biker. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And another trivia thing, him and Greg Nicotero both worked on Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. So when you think of Greg Nicotero, that's kind of like his partner in crime, Tom Savini, in the makeup world. In fact, Greg Nicotero will give Tom Savini a lot of credit to how famous he's become. Yeah. So think about that when you're watching The Walking Dead and you see Greg Nicotero and how successful he is. Yep. The godfather of gore is Tom Savini.
Yeah. And if you want to watch, Nicotero in an actual speaking role, you can watch Day of the Dead. So
correct.
That was a fun thing to watch. But so I guess we could move on to my next choice, and I'm going to throw a big curveball, and I told you about this in the email, because it's not a movie, and it doesn't get a lot of credit over here. And I'd venture to say there's probably a lot of people that have missed it, but it's called Dissect, and it's actually a miniseries that the Brits put together based on, and they used their actual people. So if you've watched Big Brother here in the States, you have to imagine if Julie Chen allowed herself to be put in a zombie movie where she gets bit, turned, and becomes kind of one of the feature zombies. Because the lady over there in the UK that's the hostess for the Big Brother show over there turns, and she's got a great sequence of events as a zombie. And this is one that it's really, like I said, people in the States might not really dig it as much because it does start a bit slow. You know, there is a lot of setup in the first episode, which is the longest part, and you can watch them all in a row. I think that's still on Netflix.
It is on Netflix because I caught that. I actually caught that around the same time as Train to Busan. So
yeah, and it's like I said, it's just got a different feel to it because the people are in this house sequestered from the world, and what they don't know is that the zombie apocalypse has happened while they're in there. And, you know, pretty soon the way they figured out is the cameras in the house aren't following them. They're not tracking. So they all think it's maybe some new prank and that Big Brother's, you know, got a little secret something going on, and they still don't buy it. And then when the producer's assistant breaks into the room and starts yelling at them, they all think she's a plant, you know, and that this is all more of the show and everything else like that. And I mean, so it takes this pop culture event and then puts the pop culture monster in center stage. And again, these are not the slow ambling type. These are the ones that move at a high rate of speed. So, again, you are in trouble if they get you. And this is another one. I won't give up any spoilers in case somebody hasn't seen it, but don't look to be feeling all warm and fuzzy when it's over.
I love this one just because of that. So I won't say anything else. So everybody who watches all the shows since we started, no, I do not want anybody to survive any of these apocalyptic, movies, because my motto is, if it's a horror movie, it's got to be horrible. You'll see. So.
I think we went away because I know on my screen anyway, it says that the device is not available. So I don't know what's going on. But
Jay, are we still up?
Oh, hang on. Sorry.
There we're back.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
F key. I keep forgetting. So I have like quick buttons over here for the different frames, and I was searching something up real quick for someone who was making some comments in the chat. Just press F3 and it switched over. I gotta change that one. I press that all the time. So sorry about that to the viewers.
Oh, that's
obviously
okay.
The people over here. We're back live though.
I will say it's like I said, I don't want to give up any spoilers, but Pippa's storyline is probably one of my favorites because she's that whining.
Yep.
It's the kind of, if you've ever watched Big Brother, she makes your ears bleed just listening to her talk, and her story arc I find probably the most satisfying. So
I won't spoil it.
And because of the way that you are so enamored with the Day of the Dead ending, I think the producer is probably something that you have to enjoy. His story arc is probably something you have to enjoy because he's the bad guy through the whole thing.
Yep.
And I definitely felt like they stole a little Day of the Dead.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to spoil it. So
yeah, because they stole a little Day of the Dead. So it's just that's a lot of fun. And again, the effects are not low budget. I mean, they pulled off some pretty good stuff. I was impressed. So.
I think that this was a very, very good pick because it was unique. I like things that, I like the fact that the three of us have, similar lists but different. And this is something that's outside of the box. But you're totally right. It's outside of the box. But if you watch it and you watch it through, it's so complete. and it's got all of modern culture, but modern culture in London and for the Brits, but it's still kind of modern. It's kind of up to date. It's got the new fast zombies. It's still flesh-eating zombies. It's got its own uniqueness to it. It's got a great ending. It's got a lot of shout out. To me, they had shout outs to not only to Big Brother, to the reality TV, and also I think to some of Romero's genre, as Todd said. So if you watch that and you know what we're talking about, if you've seen it and you know what we're talking about, then you understand why this was on his list. Good pick. Again, that's an outside the box pick. I love it. Of course, I'm going to go watch it again because now I'm going to look back and I'm going to see if I catch things that I missed. It's always good to watch a movie more than once because it's a different movie the second time. Or in this case, it's always good to watch a series more than once.
Yeah.
Because
and actually, the first time I caught it was completely random. It was something that IFC ran one Halloween, and I didn't know what to expect. And so I sat there, and by the time episode 1 was done, I was like, oh, when I had to grab my guide and find out when episode 2 was coming, because I wasn't going to miss it, So yeah, that is one that I probably watch it about every 14, 16 months. And then Halloween, it's usually running on with everything else on a loop. It's usually one of the ones that's in the rotation. Because a lot of times during that time of year, I just put stuff up on my screens in the different rooms in the house. So that as I'm walking around the house, I just walk into different parts of different zombie movies. So,
Well, she got a recommendation from the chat room over here. And this is an old one.
Go ahead.
I haven't personally saw it. This is going to test your ability here, James and TW. I don't know if you watched this. This is going back to the 1940s with Bob Hope.
White Zombie?
The Ghost Breakers.
Ghost Breakers. I've never... That's going to test me because I've never heard of it.
Yeah, that's outside of my realm.
Just kind of looking through the storyline. Enter an eerie castle, and after viewing the ghost of one of Mary's ancestors and fighting off a menacing zombie... they find the key to the castle's treasure, but are interrupted by an all-too-human foe. So it might not be necessarily an all-out zombie film, but definitely probably one of the more older occurrences of the zombie.
One of those ones to look for on Turner Classics.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
This type of zombie that Jay's talking about is more. It sounds like a hypnotic type of zombie. This is pre-Romero for anybody.
Yeah, so probably more Haitian.
Yeah, more of the white zombie, surfing in the rainbow type of zombie there. These zombies are basically human beings that, in this, I don't know what the zombies are in Ghostbreaker, but White Zombie and Surfers of the Rainbow are humans that are just, tranced, and they're mind control, and they attack. They basically are controlled by either the voodoo priest or the zombie controller. So that's what this sounds like, and it's actually interesting. So it's one that's not on my list, and as
I feel like I have to just find it to see what type of zombie it is.
Hey man, I'm up to 180 different zombie movies since we last spoke. So this will get me closer to 200.
Like I said, it's not necessarily a zombie film, but
hey man,
like same thing. And once again, shout out to Electric Mastro. Over here, he recommended a few different ones over here. I mean, it's everything from a Corpse Bride that was a stop motion, the Ghost Breakers, which is one I just mentioned, the Cabin in the Woods. Have to be
that's newer, right? Cabin in the Woods is newer. Yep, I've seen that one.
Paranorman, once again, that was I'm not sure if that was stop motion or CG.
CG, Paranorman is CG.
Yeah.
Even Heavy Metal, that 1981. I remember watching that.
Because of the ghouls in the bomber sequence. Yeah. The ghouls in the bomber sequence.
And I think you mentioned one more. There's a Japanese one.
Junk?
The Happiness of the Katakuris. He says that he recalls zombies being in it, but not sure if they actually played a major role in it.
Okay, so that's they have a movie by Lucio Fulci called Seven Doors of Death, and the zombies don't make an appearance they make an appearance throughout the movie, but they're they're not the typical zombie until the end of the movie. So that's also AKA the Beyond. That's one of my favorite, mixed type of zombie movies. Trivia here for T.W. Brown. About 28 days later, that Dawn of the Dead was actually the first running zombie movie, not 28 days later, because 28 days later, they were humans.
That's right. They were just infected. That's right.
Yes. You are correct when you said it was unique, and you were correct when you first stated it, that they were unique and not like the 28 days later, and people can't compare them. That was the trivia that I just got from my friend who is watching as well. We always like when you give us new tidbits. Thank you very much for that. I'm looking at the text message. I got to give the shout out to my friend Tim, who is a loyal fan of Echo 5 Studio. Let you continue. So we're 3 down.
Yep. So Day of the Dead. Yes. We're both on the same page with this one. Now, for me, I think what I loved the most about it, other than the fact that they were, in this underground bunker, it wasn't. This is obviously we're well into the infection of the plague now. So there's these small outposts. Of course, this is when Romero started. I think reading some of his own press, because this is where you start getting his. This is where he started. This was a preview of the fact that he was really going to become message oriented on whatever cause he was going to jump on at the time, and that's his right as a producer, and I watch it for the zombies. I don't watch it for the message. So, but to have the scientists and then the military and then the civilians, and to have this little mix that they had going on, and then capturing and trying to figure it out, that to me is what really drew me in. But you can't love Day of the Dead without mentioning Bub. I mean, that was sort of the first time we get something different from one of the zombies, and so maybe the doctor was onto something, because at the end, that was wonderful. I mean, I absolutely love how they slowly brought him along, and I mean, the doctor was mad. He was mad as a hatter. You had to wonder what else he was doing. So, there was a lot going on. They give you the jump scare at the end with the hands coming through the wall and everything else like that. But for me, the whole Bub arc is what made that movie for me. It made the movie different. I saw that in the theaters. I was actually stationed in South Carolina at the time. I was in the Navy, and went and saw it in the movie theaters, and I was one of maybe 4 people that was in the theater, And it was just, I sat there, and by the time it was over, I was like, wow, okay. That was the first time I saw, cognizance from one of the undead, and that, to me, just made it stand out and made it special. And I think it was also the fact that for me at that time, being in the military and everything else like that, I was so, I didn't have, you didn't have the availability to see everything like you do now, and it just, I'd wanted something zombie related for so long, and waited, and then finally this came out. So it may have just been the glass of water to the guy in the desert. I mean, there might be people that watch it now and go, wow, I don't get it. What, but you've got Rhodes and, his amazing ending, and the great line that he has at the end, and, just all of that together. And they sort of, you get to see Rhodes sort of nodded to with several movies down the line. You look at the way that Paxton goes out in Aliens, and it was very, to me, reminiscent of Rhodes's ending in Day of the Dead. He wasn't just going to go down. He was going to go down and talk trash to the thing that was killing him all the way out. And that wasn't very common back then. That sort of response to, your ending was not to yell choke on him. The screaming part, yeah, okay, yeah, we get that.
Yeah.
But go out saying choke on him, that was sort of a different. And then, like I said, you saw this kind of become. He really sort of created with this character. He created a new sort of archetype for an ending, for either a good guy or a bad guy to go out. This was the real going out in a blaze of glory moment. Correct. I mean, he wasn't just guns blazing. He was talking trash on the way down. Yep. So he was going to get the last word in as they ripped him in half. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, was just, that really stood out. And then couple that with Bub, and I can't not have that as one of my top 5.
And shout out just to your Dead series. The first thing that I noticed when I read the Dead series, Child of the Romero Zombies, I noticed that you had a character. I don't know if you did this on purpose or if this even is related, but one of your vignettes, his name is Reggie, and he's a scientist, and he's in a bunker, and he's trying to figure out the zombie apocalypse. Instead of having Bub, he has a heroin addict, female. So it's like he ends up dying, and it's different. But I always wondered if there was a connection there. So this is my question to you. Did you use some of Dr. Logan for Reggie?
I was inspired by Dr. Logan, and I wanted to say this was the more normalized scientist. This guy wasn't the nut job. This was the one that would have maybe been able to figure things out had he been down there with the right people. So yeah, Reggie. That whole sequence was actually a bit of a nod to Logan, but if Logan hadn't been a whack job.
Okay. So I was, see, all right. So I put 2 and 2 together there, and that made the books even, more, it made the book special to me because it was a nod to, one of my favorite, my number 3 of all time. But the one thing that I love about, these movies and the villains is this is the first villain, and everybody thinks the zombies are the villains. The zombies are the zombies. You always have a villain in the movie, and the villain is not always, a villain per se. They can also be a good guy. They, they have something that they're fighting for. In Night of the Living Dead, it was Harry Cooper. Was he right? Was Ben right? Was he right? They both had ideologies. Both of them were wrong in their own ways. We just looked at Ben as being the hero, and we looked at Harry as being the villain. But sometimes you, just like in The Walking Dead, sometimes you have to look at things from both sides. And I think Rhodes, even though he was mean and nasty, there was a point that he was trying to do the right thing. And because he went out in a blaze of glory, it made me respect the villain that much more. He was my favorite villain. Yeah. I called him a villain because he didn't give a fuck. He went out and told 15, 20 zombies to choke on him while they're ripping him apart. I don't care what you do. Choke on him. He's shooting people and point blank. He's telling people, you're going to do what I say. He's telling his own soldiers, you don't listen to me, I'll shoot you. You know what I'm saying?
The scene at the dinner table.
Yeah, when he tells Steele to shoot Sarah, and Steele goes, bang, you're dead. And he goes, shoot that woman or you're dead. It's like he just had that moxie to him. And again, even though he was a villain in a lot of eyes, you can also argue that he wasn't a villain. He was doing his job. And a lot of villains now, like you see Negan, he has a little bit of Captain Rhodes in him at times, and these are nods to Romero. So it's like even now you can see that Captain Rhodes had an influence on what we see now in the genre. The Governor, if you read the comic books, the Governor goes out defiantly as he's being torn apart by the zombies, and he says Philip Blake lives as he's being torn apart, even though he got shot in the head and he's being ripped apart. He's still defiant to this enemy and to life itself, saying, I don't care. I'm gonna go out on my terms. I know it's over, but I'm not gonna make it over until I want it to be. So definitely agree with you on that one. I love all the characters in this movie. Bub, was the first zombie that, like you said, was cognizant and actually retained that memory. And I think that Romero hit that right on target, where he showed you that if the brain, even the smallest trace of humanity is left in the brain, he kind of touched upon that in Dawn of the Dead, by saying they remember. If that's the case, you're going to have those one or two zombies that have a little bit more function, and that was Bub. So, great movie. I totally agree. That should be on everybody's top 5. Yep. And if you haven't ever watched the trilogy, shame on you. But get the trilogy now. But
yeah, and the ones that came after, you can watch them if you're just starving and there's nothing else available, because Land and Diary are just they've got his name on them, and that's it.
Yeah, they were kind of disappointing to me, but I think it was more of, like you said, he became more speaking on social satire. He became more of he wanted to speak on the social issues more and more and more as he made these movies. Yeah. And it took away from the viewers concentrating on the zombies. But that was Romero. So it is what it is. That leaves the number one.
The number one. I mean, this is the one that started it for me when, I was 14 years old and saw it in the theater. I mean, the original Dawn of the Dead, I had no idea what I was in for. I didn't even go to the theater to see that movie. I went to go see the movie it was playing with, because this is back in the days of double features, and that movie made such an impact. It made such an impact that it made me not want to actually write this kind of stuff. When it was a creative writing instructor that basically pushed me over the edge and said, you need to do this. Not every story is going to be the same. Not every story has been done, because that was my reason for not writing more of it, and to be able to sit down and do this now and do it my way, is just, it's a dream come true. But I'm always, anytime I'm asked, I can't ever deny that this is Dawn of the Dead, the original 1978, 77, whatever year you want to give it, this is the movie that did it for me. When that opening sequence happens in the TV station, it's so frenetic and there's so much going on, and then you shift to this low rent, housing project, and it just goes crazy. And when that woman runs out and she's screaming in Spanish at her husband, and he just looks at her and then takes a chunk out of her, I'm like, wow, really? And then he gets another bite on the way out, and it's like, you gotta be kidding me. And it just yeah, there was nothing like this in the theaters back then. Yeah. There just wasn't. This is the 70s, so we didn't have, the glut of horror movies and torture porn films like Saw and everything else like that we have now. This was a standout film that was different from anything else. And what made it so special was it pulled you into this group, and the dynamics start off so real, especially for the time. When you look at the 70s, when Peter's sitting in the back of that helicopter with Fran, here's middle-class white girl, great big black guy, and you see the looks that they give each other that are so what you would expect for the time. It's so real, and it pulled me in, and it never let go, and all the way up to the ending. And I was the kid sitting there in the theater the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th time watching it, just wishing that this would be the time that the movie would continue to go after the helicopter lifts off. I just kept wanting it to keep going. I wanted to know what happened next. And, in my head, I would create the stories, and I would, just kind of run through them in my brain and just over and over and over and over again. I probably gave them 100 endings and none of them were ever really good. It never went well, you know. So it was just, there was so much to it, you know, and Roger's death and then Stephen's death, and it just, and the effects. I mean, Savini pulls off some stuff here that had never been done before. I mean, that machete to the head scene was something brand new. I mean, people were wondering everywhere, how did he pull that off? How did he do that? How did he do that?
Trick.
Yeah, you know, we look at it now and we can sort of see it, but at the time, nobody had done anything like that, you know. And then to make a false floor with these guys' legs and upper bodies through it, and then to take, you know, the insides of a pig and put it in a prosthetic piece and rip it open and tear all that out. Mm-hmm. That was all, I mean, this is all groundbreaking stuff, mm-hmm. you know, and it made it that much more real. Yeah, and it stuck with me from the first time I saw it, and it's still to this day. I mean, I still get, you know, a legitimate visceral feeling watching the original. As dated as the effects are, as cheesy as the blue spray painted makeup is, it still does so much. You know, watching that whole thing unfold. You know, the air hanger sequence. You know, when I actually wrote a short story based on the bald guy with his face all burned up and the two kids in the closet. I wrote my own little "here's how that happened" story. Wow. Okay, you know, I mean, it's
going to lead to a big question, but keep going.
Yeah, it was just everything about that movie and Goblin's soundtrack.
Yes.
You know, they
knocked it dead. That was an eerie soundtrack. The doom 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 doom.
Yeah.
Doom. It was just that, and then just the uniqueness of that soundtrack that pushed the movie. And then every time they had an action scene, they hit it dead with the music. That's something that I caught too. Totally agree. Keep going.
I was so bummed because they were just here in Portland, and I missed them. I didn't know they were here, and a friend of mine actually went and was sending me pictures, and I'm like, oh, I hate you so much right now. Yeah, but yeah, I have that as part of my soundtrack that I play throughout the house a lot of times if I'm writing, and I'm just kind of looking for something in my head. It's called Music to Write the Dead By. It's my own Spotify playlist, and it's got Future Sound of London and Goblin and a bunch of other stuff. And I walk around the house and I will find that track and play it and walk around the house to let my brain just sort of churn, you know, and put me into the right mood. So, but that is always going to be my all-time favorite. And yes, there's always going to be people are going to go, what about Shaun of the Dead? What about the original Night of the Living Dead? Those are all great movies.
They can't.
But this is my 5, and those are the reasons why. I mean, I love Shaun of the Dead. I do. That movie, I've probably watched it more in the last few years than any other zombie film. Mm-hmm. But my top 5, those are the ones. And Dawn is always, I don't think Dawn will ever be supplanted from that spot.
It's my favorite horror movie, not only zombie movie. There's number 1 zombie and number 1 horror ever. And I can watch, you know, I just watched a zombie movie called Dawning of the Dead on demand, and it was okay, you know, but it you know, it's more new and it, you know, cheesy. And then I watched Day of the Dead Bloodline, which is like a remake of Day of the Dead. It's the second Day of the Dead remake, and it was okay, but it's not like Day of the Dead. And it's just like, man, I totally agree with you. And this is one thing that I had a question to you, and you kind of answered it. You alluded to it. You answered it already, but as you know, when I was younger, I went from an inner city school to a suburban school, and you know, they didn't have as much in terms of educational materials in my school in the city compared to when I moved to the suburbs. So I was behind, and the teacher would always ask, they put me in a special reading and writing classes to catch up, and they used to, write a book or a story. And I used to always say, I wish I could, I want to write the ending to Dawn of the Dead. And my father and mother's like, don't do that. You're going to have, the child protective services going to come because you're writing crazy stuff. But I used to always, as a kid, try to figure out the ending. So my question to you was, would you ever consider, like, if you did, like, would you write that? Like, if a fan asked you, such as myself, to write that, would you write it for the fan and so they can read it and say, wow, I could see this happening, like creating an ending for it. Like, it
would be one of those things where I don't think I would ever do justice to what any of us have come up with on our heads.
Okay.
And it's because, like I said, I probably have gone through 100 different ones, Yep. Now, I actually spent ready to write Dead. Mm-hmm. I wrote little mini stories on some of the feature zombies from the original Dawn. Okay. The gun collector, and I used the Alice Cooper name for her, Nurse Rosetta, the nurse that was there.
Yeah.
And then the guy at the airport that comes in with his head. Yeah, him too, but also the one that sticks his head in the door and has got his face all burnt up, is wearing the flannel shirt and everything.
Oh yeah, the one that Steven shot at.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's actually, in the short that I wrote called The Tale of the Twins, he's the father of the two little kids in the closet.
Okay.
And so I actually wrote a short Tale of the Twins, and it was about how those kids end up in the closet and get turned and everything else like that. I mean, but the ending to Dawn for me was so iconic that I think anybody who really got sucked into that movie has done their own what ifs.
Yes, that is true. It's 100% correct.
Nothing that I think would come out of my head would match up to the individual endings that I think every fan has created.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I made an ending. I remember I wrote an ending where they ended up, I did the geographical, map of everything around Monroeville, and they ended up like at a ski lodge, and there were people at the ski lodge, and then the raiders, the zombies followed them because of the sound, but the raiders followed them because of the helicopters. So they ended up having this epic final battle, when I was younger. So you're absolutely correct. Trivia here. The flannel zombie made an appearance in Walking Dead in the episode with Merle when he dies. Merle Dixon goes to the hotel with Michonne. Mm-hmm. He lets Michonne go. They're hot wiring the car. He's driving the car at this time, and the flannel zombie comes out. That's the same zombie that appeared in Dawn of the Dead. And then the machete zombie, when Tom Savini, hits one of the zombies with a machete and then pulls it out of the skull, and the other raider pulls the zombie back. That zombie made an appearance in the season 5 finale when Daryl and Aaron were in the car, and they get to the car. Daryl hits one of the zombies with the machete, same zombie. So Nicotero, he sends a lot of shout outs through The Walking Dead. If you're a Dawn of the Dead fan and you watch The Walking Dead, you will catch this every time. And it's almost like you have to see it again, because it's like, did they just have the zombie that was in Dawn of the Dead? Yes, they did. So it's like, when you see that, it's such nostalgia. It's such a callback, and you appreciate it. So definitely, Dawn of the Dead has its fingers in everything that's zombie now. It's ridiculous.
So I got all a question time for you guys.
Yep.
What defines a zombie? Because you have like 20 Days Later. You have I Am Legend. And obviously you have stuff like The Walking Dead. You have stuff like Fast Zombies, and So what do you think actually defines what is a zombie and what's not?
Since Todd is our guest, we're gonna let him go.
For me, they have to be dead. I mean, they can't just be crazy with some sort of monkey rage virus. They have to be dead. I mean, it's fun to watch 28 Days Later, and you can get sort of convinced that that it's a zombie film, but just because they're ripping people apart, it's once you think about it, it's not. For me, the the biggest thing is they have to be dead, and we're not talking about voodoo or anything else like that, but for cinematic zombies or ghouls, whatever you want to call them, they were dead, then they get back up. So, and then the way they die is up for grabs depending on the person that wants to write the story. I mean, if you want to make it the classic headshot, that's great. If you want to just be able to decapitate them, that's fine too. Decapitation doesn't work in my world, so
nope.
But that for me is the biggest factor. They have to be dead and then get back up.
I totally agree. The famous line as in Dawn of the Dead, we'll shout that out one more time. In the beginning, when the two news reporters are talking, the people it kills get up and kill. That's a zombie to me. When he said that, that's a zombie. It's the fact that the brain, there's something in the brain, and Robert Kirkman will never tell you what caused the zombie virus. Neither Romero kind of hinted that it was a crass Venus probe. Yeah. So something reanimated the brain in all corpses, and it brought to life the recently deceased. And they carried this infection that even if you died of natural causes, you would turn into one, but they became even deadlier if they, bit you. And not only did you have, you can escape a bite, but the virus or the infection itself will carry on and kill you quicker. And it's just the fact, to me, it not only do they have to be dead, they have to have this relentless infection, and their whole purpose is just to exist and spread that infection. They don't care. The numbers it is exhausting. But the reason why they're so dangerous, not only dead, but dangerous, is they just want to spread the virus. They have no other purpose. No purpose. Just keep replicating and duplicating themselves. And that's the scariest monster ever, is a zombie. So
and they're like the tide. They are going to keep coming and keep coming.
Keep coming.
All right.
So
another question then.
Yep.
Preferences. There's a couple different ways zombies can be reanimated, like the quickness of the turning. Do you like that slow, virus, or do you like the instant kind of turn? And also, speaking of speed, do you like the slow zombie or the fast zombie?
They both have their merits. I mean, it is fun to watch Sarah Pauli's boyfriend chasing that car as she's driving away, and then when he veers off and goes after the person in the yard, I love that scene. I laugh every time. Yeah, I do. I just almost fall out of my chair laughing every single time. The little girl getting up and running down the hall is just creepy.
Yeah.
But the slow version, people go, oh well, they're slow. There's nothing about that. Well, yeah, but you will eventually have to sleep, and they don't. It's the tortoise and the hare, You can be the hare for a long time, but pretty soon you're going to sleep, and the tortoise is going to catch you, and then you're done. As far as turn times, I actually like to play with it in my world. I give them a 72-hour window. Now, some of them turn fast, but others take a couple of days. So I like the varying part of it so that, maybe there's a little suffering here and there. Somebody knows that they're going to go, so maybe they try to do something on the way out, either for or against the group. So that, for me as a writer, that just kind of gives me a new element to play with. Because the instant turn, now that's fun to watch. Train to Busan's got some great turn sequences that are a blast to watch. Yeah. Those are a blast to watch. And I don't know how those people got their bodies to contort that way in some of those instances, because that was impressive. That was impressive. But
the Japanese like contortionists because they do that in a lot of their ghost films too. Yeah. But go ahead.
But
Sorry.
That, to me, that's the thing, is that the turn time can vary for me, and both slow and fast. It's just, as long as it's well done and as long as it fits, I'm good with it.
I gotta agree there. Only because I feel that the turn time everybody's different. Everybody is different. Everybody. You have people who are sickly. You have people who are extremely healthy. That doesn't matter if a zombie bites you, but your turn time should be your anatomy. If you're a very healthy person and you're limber, you're in shape, I think your turn time should be quicker than somebody who's old and feeble and they have to get their motors running anyways when they get up and something like that. Their turn time should be slower. But again, it's random because you have young people who, aren't healthy and you have older people who are healthier than them. So I think the turn time should always vary. As for the speed of the zombies, I love them both. I think the slowness is creepy, but the quick zombies are relentless. And that's something that plays into, my belief of it's horror movie. It's got to be horrible. The slow zombies, you can formulate a plan. Yes, it's the tortoise and the hare, and everything is different. I go by what Jay says all the time. You get ready for the zombie apocalypse. You think you're an expert, and you step one foot out the door and you get bit on the foot the first day, and you're like, "What the hell is this?" So, the slow zombies can catch you off guard too, but I think the fast zombies add that this is damn near impossible. It's going to separate the real from the fake. So I really think both can work. They just have to be presented specifically and in their own respective way. So great question.
Yep.
And I agree. I think two different kind of films. You got the fast zombies, like you said, it's the horror. It's this, you're always on edge, the edge of the seat, what's going to happen next. Whereas I feel like the slow zombies are more of a constant. And I think that plays on, what do humans do now? It gives them time to actually question, how can I, it reminds me of kind of like The Road or Lord of the Flies, and those kind of survival, books or films like that, where it's about, what happens when the rules fall apart. And now you can actually think about it, consider not just, all right, we got to get from point A to point B as fast as we can. Hey, maybe I'll screw you over, take your food, and leave you out there to die. That kind of thing. And the turn, same thing. That quick turn is that horror, like, holy crap, my best friend just got bit and he's up again. Oh, yep. Shit. Now what do I do? Well, whereas the slow turn, it's like, holy crap, my best friend just got bit. What do I do? Do I kill him now? Do I wait till I kill him later? Right. Or, it has like a completely different twist to it now. And like you said, I think it depends on the film and kind of on their goal and what they're trying to achieve there.
Totally great question. That was an awesome question. We have a special question for T.W. Brown from my buddy Tim. He said, what series would you relate to Romero's film? Zomblog, the Dead series, the new Dead series, Snapshots. Obviously not Ghoul of Ava, but what would you say closely, or has more of Romero's, more nods to Romero out of those three?
I would have to say the very first book of the original Dead series, because that was really the first time I just sort of took my time. I mean, Zomblog was written over several months because it was written as an actual journal entry. I wrote each one of those pages on the days that that it shows. So that was a daily writing exercise that I did to get ready to write the Dead series. Mm-hmm. When I sat down and ready to write the first one, Dead the Ugly Beginning, I had so much in my head, and the whole Romero thing was really right here, And so I wanted to do something that would hold up and that wouldn't be just a rehash of what he had done. I wanted to do my thing. I mean, I even joke about them all, I mean, and there's a scene with Kevin and his crew where,
they go to Pittsburgh.
They actually make the trip, and there's a little bit of trash talking going on because of it. And, so it was all there. But each one of them, every single book that I write, the Romero influence is sitting there on my shoulder. I mean, I feel it every time I sit down. And this year probably more so because of his his recent passing. it made me realize that part of my life is over. You know, waiting for the next Romero film is done. Yep. You know, and so now it is really up to everybody else to make that genre what it is, you know, and to keep it going. So people like Kirkman and it's just, you know, I don't ever want it to fade away like it did. Obviously, I mean, that's how I make a living. But you know, it's nice now to see it that it's come mainstream. I mean, there's always going to be people that hate something once it becomes popular, and so you always have that degree of backlash. But for me, it's not. I don't think zombies are going anywhere now. They're now part of culture. They're now mainstream, just like, you know, vampires and everything else like that, and they're not going anywhere. And so now I get to keep doing this, and every time I sit down and write, it's a bit of an homage to Romero, who got the whole thing started. Yeah. I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for him.
Yeah, well, he is the godfather of zombies. He is the man. And you know, I did it when he first passed. You know, it affected me big time. I've about 8 friends of mine who knows how much I'm obsessed with zombies. They texted me, they sent me emails. Oh, it's gonna be a tough day for you. And I'm like, what are you? You know, Romero passed, and it was just like, oh man, you know. And you think that when he passed, you look and say Kirkman obviously is carrying the torch. He started carrying it, so it's almost like the transition to the next, anyways. And it's so appreciative. And I talked to Todd in an email today and told him when I first watched Day of the Dead and when it ended, it was almost heartbreaking, because it was like, you don't want this to end, and you knew it was the last one. And you know, when they're on the island, you just had the feeling of finality. And I always said, you know, people laughed at me for liking zombie movies, and I always would tell people, one day they're gonna have either a comic book about zombies, or they're gonna have a TV show where the thing lasts for decades. And people laughed and told me I was a nutcase and nobody would watch it. I mean, I wish my uncle was here now. He said, you're crazy. Nobody likes this stuff. And it was like, somebody has to pick this up, because nothing lasts. Nobody can live forever. And you started to see Romero getting older. And then all of a sudden, you know, you started to hear about that comic book, and it was almost like a dream come true. So like you said, when Romero passed, it was that chapter of your life, not just your life, but any fan of this genre. That chapter is done, you know, as of the next Romero film. But guess what? You got people like Tim Snyder. You got Robert Kirkman. You got Tom Savini, who can always come and make a movie, you know, out of nowhere. You have Max Brooks. You have so many different, you know, authors that are ready to pick up the pieces and keep this alive. And you know, you got the Scott Gimples. You have the Eric Dickersons. You have so many different, you know, people who were influenced by Romero and just can keep carrying the torch. And I think that's a great point that you made. It's just that chapter's done, but it's not, you know.
But now that it's mainstream, it's opened it up for other people to really step forward. Yeah. So, you know, that right now there's some kid sitting in his high school English class that is following Kirkman like you know, like we followed Romero, and he wants to be the next one, you know. So like I said, I don't think it's ever going to go away now. I think this is now ingrained into our culture. It's part of, you know, people can love it or hate it, but it's not going anywhere.
It's kind of like the superhero movies, how, you know, hit the vein, and now, you know, every summer, or hell, probably every month now, you're gonna get superhero movies.
The same thing about Wolverine too. I told people, you know, Wolverine was my favorite. You know, I'm Jay and I are short people, you know. So, and I'm wide-bodied, but I'm short. I'm short to the ground, and you know, Wolverine was one of my favorites because he's smaller, and you know, he's just a like, I've molded myself after him, you know, and I just always said, you know, I used to tell people Wolverine is one of those superheroes that's going to be like Batman. It's going to be like Superman, Spider-Man. He's going to have his own thing one day. He's going to have his own movies. people laughed. Oh, you're crazy. This guy will kill him. And, Mega Red and just going, it's destroying me. And I was like, you trust me. Wolverine, just like zombies. And of course, so Jay, I like that point too. Thank you very much for proving me right again.
No problem. So, another question. Let's say a new zombie movie is coming out. What would get you excited about it? Would it be like producer, director? Would it be a sequel, prequel? Would it be influenced by a comic book or book? What if you saw a new trailer for a zombie movie? What would make you excited to watch it?
Seeing that it was not dumbed down, and because that's just it. Is you watch the trailers on Netflix for the for movies that come on, or you see just different trailers for different films, and you're like, oh well, that was probably the best part of the film right there, and 9 times out of 10 you end up being correct. Mm-hmm. It would have to be, I would have to trust the person that is directing and producing it, because look at how much hope for zombie fans was riding when World War Z came out.
Oh, we can jump into that can of worms.
It's just, for me, the moment that I heard that Brad Pitt had grabbed it, I was already set to hate it. Yeah. I was already like, oh, there went that. I'm sorry, Brad Pitt, zombies, no, it didn't work for me in my head, and it proved to be right. It was grossly disappointing. But so it would have to be who's in it. I would talk to friends of mine who are really tapped into the community, and I would start asking them questions about, do you know who's doing the effects? Do you know who's doing this? Who's directing? Who's doing screenplay work? Who's screenwriting it? And if you start hearing that it's been through 5, 6, 7 screenwriters and they keep rewriting and trashing it, then you can already say that this is probably going to be a bust. Yeah. So you want to hear that this is something that they're feeling really good about, and that is getting the blessing of, because that people that are, names in the genre are going to get brought in to look, and what are they saying? What are you hearing? That rumor mill can be really, really powerful stuff, for better or for worse. And there are people whose voices I would listen to, and people who I'd go, okay, well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. I wouldn't listen to any critic. No film critic would say anything that could make me decide whether I'd want to see it or not. Right. It would come from people that I know that are in the industry, and from finding out who's attached to it, and then seeing what it looks like on screen, because that's, you're going to watch it at home on television eventually anyway. So if the commercial doesn't look worth a damn on your television at home, you're not going to be impressed any more so seeing it in a larger venue. So, I was one of those people scared to death when it came out, but I was pleasantly surprised on the positive. And Stephen King stepped forward and endorsed it before it came out. That meant a lot, because he's made his displeasure with some of his adaptations very, very public. So I was actually on a podcast right before it came out talking about, will they ever get a Stephen King movie right? And it was, something that we talked about a great deal, because it was like 2 weeks away from its premiere at the time. And we were all very tentative and very nervous about what was going to happen. And then you started hearing Stephen King's reaction to it, and you felt a little better, And so I would trust people that I know that are involved in the industry in different aspects, and I would be asking them a lot of questions. So that's what I would go off of.
The first thing I would do is, if I hear based on Romero's, I won't watch it again. I would probably watch it to add to my number of zombie movies watched, but I would hate it, because anytime when somebody tries to remake one of his, the only 2 remakes I liked were Night of the Living Dead by Tom Savini, because again, Tom Savini, he's tied to Romero.
Yep.
You know, he's tied to Russo. He's tied to Nicotero. And then, you know, the Dawn of the Dead remake, because it was new and it was unique. But it also, you know, they even though Romero didn't like it because it was fast zombies, Savini endorsed it. You know, all the original characters endorsed it. So like Todd said, you have to look at who's behind it. If I were to make, you know, based on the classic Dawn of the Dead 2018 by James Wade, people would be like, this is gonna be the dumbest shit ever. And it's just the fact that nobody knows who the hell you are. And then, like you said, if you see that it got canceled, or, you know, you start to look and you look at the actors, you never heard of them before, or, you know, it's going to be stupid. So I think that you're absolutely right. You have to look at who's behind it. But I think, you know, personally, I think it, like you said, the trailer will usually show the best parts. I want to see something that blows you away. So it's like, if, for instance, since we're talking, you know, to Todd, if you saw the commercial and you saw, like, you know, okay, you see a zombie walking, and then, you know, somebody calls out to it, or somebody's, you know, calls out to it, and it turns and has those black tracers in his eyes, and it's convincing, and it's just like, oh shit, he made a movie. That'll make me go, why? You know what I'm saying? So if it's something that stood out in the books that I'm reading, or something that I'm so familiar with, and it captures me, I'm gonna go and watch it as well. So I have to see who's doing it. I have to make sure it's not an adaptation, and it has to be unique in some sort of way. So like I said, Train to Busan, you know, looking at that trailer blew me away, and just the concept, and just, you know, you could see that it wasn't poor acting even in the trailer. You know, that made me want to watch it. And
the thing is the first 5 minutes, I'm like, what have I gotten myself into?
Yep.
The first 5 minutes with the deer.
Yeah, we hit the deer, and then he stood up. I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, I was like, what is this going to be like? Brian King's The Rising? Is that what we're going to get out of this? And then
shit hit the fan quick.
Yeah,
quick. With that girl coming when she got bit and she started contorting, I said, wow, what the hell? And then it just boom, 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 boom. And like they had to run into, whew, it was intense. So if you haven't seen that, Netflix, buddy.
And watch it all the way to the end.
There you go. Any more questions, Jay?
Yeah, I got another question for T.W. Brown.
All right.
What do you think will be the greatest challenge translating your books into a movie?
The scope that I used in the first one. The new series would be much easier. The original 12-book series would be next to impossible because of the vignettes. Right. Because of the different storylines, because of the geek storyline and the Perspective Steve storyline and everything else like that. There's just so much going on. They could pick like Juan's vignette and do that, or they could pull Reggie, but I don't think that would make riveting cinema, because it's so much of it is in a bunker and there's not really a lot going on. But the new series is written much differently, and is much easier. I think you could take any one of the snapshots. Any one of the snapshots is a standalone piece. The one I'm writing right now, which is the last snapshot that I'll be writing for the next year, because all my focus in 2018 is the new Dead series. So I'm writing a snapshot solely because I was at a charity event, and the cover, the people that are going to be on the cover, they actually bid to have themselves put on the cover of the book. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So I've got to, I'm sort of obligated to write that piece, and I'm actually into it right now. I mean, the new Dead book doesn't even come out till the 19th, but I'm already into chapter 2, writing the snapshot that will be the last one, and I hope to have it out by March. So, and then my objective is to have a new book every 10 to 12 weeks for the rest of the year, from the new Dead series. But the new Dead series would be a lot easier, cinema-wise, to convert, because it really does follow one person.
Gotcha. I don't know. I think I might be out of questions for right now. Anyway, James, you got anything else over there?
Well, it's always awesome that you join us, and just for you to come back. We appreciate it more than you know. It's speaking to you. This guy is not just an author. He's really good guy, and it's like definitely read his books. I gave one away. I had the Audible, and I purchased Dead, a Snapshot Las Vegas, and we talked about it so much. I gave one away because this guy who's always posting on Facebook. He's always telling me he's posting on Facebook. He's a good friend of mine, so I gave him Las Vegas, and he went out and purchased The Ugly Beginning, and he's purchasing as he's going along. So he's finishing that one, and he's flipping it and getting the next one, and he's going to flip it and get the next one. But just encourage you to read Todd's books, and they're on the flesh-eating zombie genre, but they have their unique touch to them, as we talked about in the last episode. I want to touch on the new charity. We rescued 2 dogs. J-No's done pretty well. And the Forever Homes is one of the organizations that we went through. So definitely, Animals Without a Voice. Definitely the Humane Society is a great charity. If you can donate, all of our proceeds go to charity. So that's another good charity, and it's close. And I'm glad you actually picked that one because, you can relate. We got 2 rescues ourselves.
Of course, yeah. And
so
one thing we always look for charities is something that's personal to us, and also
Yep.
something that we can track. So we can set a goal. For this one's going to be $1,500. Last one's $1,000. This one's $1,500. Once we get to level 3, it'll be $2,000. We'll keep incrementally increasing that $500. And also, we want to make sure that we don't want to handle the money. We don't want you guys to worry about well, there's pocketing in it, or we don't want to go to like a middleman.
Jesus
or
Christ.
like that. We just want to make sure, hey, here's a direct link. Hands off from us. Everything's going right towards them. So we looked at GoFundMe, but GoFundMe wanted to take a certain percentage off. So we decided, let's just go right to the website, right to the direct link there, and save money and get more money towards them, and keep our hands clean and everything, keep our hands off of everything.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, well, I have a big soft spot when it comes to the animals. So, in fact, this new series, I get to feature. There's a Newfie in the series. In fact, my girl Freya was one of the cover models.
Hey,
that's her and the real Evan Barry on the cover. In fact, I will be going this weekend to catch a show at a place called Doug Fir. Unchained is going to be playing. They're the Van Halen tribute band, fronted by Don Evans. So if you have dipped your toe into the new Dead series, you've met this evil bastard named Don Evans, which is nothing like my friend Donnie. He's so excited to be a villain, by the way. He's loving every minute of it. So, but Evan is fronting his band, and they're opening for Unchained. So I'm actually going to get some pictures with Evan and Don at the show, and share those and put those up on Instagram and Facebook and everything else like that. They'll probably be choking each other and that sort of thing. So it's always a blast to get together with these guys. And a lot of the guys that I know from the tribute scene are now excited because their names are starting to show up in my Rolodex as they throw their name at me and say, you got to use me, you got to use me. So there have been a lot of cameos from guys from the tribute scene here in Portland in some of the new Dead series. But Don Evans and Evan, it'll be a blast. They're kind of excited to be playing in the same venue, and I will be at the show Saturday, and so that's going to be a good time. And but back to your charity, I have got to say that's one that I mean, granted, I've got paper dogs and I show them and everything else like that. It's sort of it's very different, but it's still a big love of animals. I mean, the toughest scene I ever wrote, besides Pluck, was the scene in Snapshot with Cersei and Imp, and that I had to narrate that for the audio version, and I think it took me like 5 cuts to do it without my voice cracking, because my 2 border collies were my inspiration for that scene. And so yeah, I get more choked up with an animal being hurt than I do a person.
Same thing here. I think, like, watching The Walking Dead, I mean, hell, we watched the CG tiger, die, and I think, my wife over here cried to that more than any other real life character.
It's heartbreaking.
And if you're a horse in the zombie films, you're gonna have a bad day. Apparently, you're just fodder. That's it. But yeah, this just goes to us. Supposed to be the more advanced mammals on this planet, and we need to protect them. They don't know any better.
Supposed to be their caretakers.
Yeah.
We adopted not only 2 dogs, we also have a guinea pig that we adopted. Jay knows that one too.
Now I will say I do have a rescue a rescue African gray. So I do have, actually both of ours now are technically, because the one was, from a private owner that they couldn't care for it anymore, but Lisa was a rescue whose owner abandoned her after 18 years because she doesn't like women, and he got a girlfriend. The bird didn't like the girl, so after 18 years with this bird, he ditched the bird and kept the girl. So, but she's grown her feathers back, and she has conversations with me daily while I'm writing. So, she's doing just fine. But so yeah, I've got a couple of my own little rescues here. They're feathered instead of furry, but yeah. And yeah, this is kind of an arc where I live.
It does multiply.
Yes.
How many cats do you have now, Jay? 3, right?
Yeah, we have 3. We have 2 that are rescued, and then one of our neighbors was moving, and they didn't take the cat for one reason or another, so we had to. So we offered to take him in instead of it go to the shelter as well. I mean, if it was up to my wife, we'd have a giant farm full of kittens and just rolling around in them all the time. But instead, we could do to give back is just to support places like Humane Society, and make sure they get the shelter, food, and love that they need.
Yeah, great cause.
So before we go, because we've been going so long, and I got basically reamed for not doing my on the last show, the zombie movie of the week. We have a triple feature. Okay, Lucci, one of my favorite producers of zombie movies. I'm trying to get this right on this damn camera. But we have Zombie, City of the Living Dead, and 7 Doors of Death, or also known as The Beyond. 3 of my favorite movies of all time. It's a triple feature. You have to watch all of them. This guy
Shark
is
versus zombie. You're never gonna see it anywhere else.
You never will see that anywhere else. The shark versus the zombie, an underwater battle between the dead and Sharknado underwater. I guess you can call it that. But he is the master of the eyeball spike. All 3 movies have victims suffering horrible deaths via the eyeball death. Not only that, you'll see great gore. You'll also, you'll notice that this Zombie itself was the unofficial sequel to Dawn of the Dead. So it's actually called Dawn of the Dead 2 in Europe. So this is an Italian film producer. Check it out. Triple feature. This makes up for me not doing it a couple of weeks. Todd, if you haven't seen, I know you've seen Zombie, if you said the shark versus the zombie. But 7 Doors of Death, a.k.a. The Beyond, Zombie, and then City of the Living Dead. City of the Living Dead had also one of the most goriest scenes I've ever seen in one of the classic zombie movies, and that was when the priest came and he gave the look of death to an unsuspecting victim, and she proceeded to die in a very gory way. So definitely check it out. It's James's triple feature. Triple. Okay?
Love it.
Triple feature.
All right, so TW, where can the fans find you on the social media?
They can find me on Todd T.W. Brown Author on Facebook. You can actually, if you just go to authortwbrown.com, it'll take you anywhere you need to go. My blog is there. Actually, right now for the next several weeks, I'm writing about my new feast. So, if you want to look at pictures of dogs, that's a good place to go. Plus, there will be a teaser for the new Dead book, Snapshot Estacada, coming out. But then if all else fails, just go to Amazon and type in T.W. Brown and your browser will light up. So I'm all over the place. In fact, I just counted to get an official count, and I guess this is book number 37 that I'm writing right now.
Ooh.
So
shit.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, I did not realize there was that many. So
and
so if you type in T.W. Brown on Amazon, you'll get a list.
And you also have audiobooks too, right?
Yes, I do. I'm all over Audible. Had a great production team do the original Dead series. I've been working on the new Dead series. I've done some of the snapshots. I've let a couple of other people jump in and be guests and do the other snapshots. South Carolina was done by Pamela Lawrence, who is the voice on the That Goleva series. Mm-hmm. And there'll be some other guests that'll probably cut one of the snapshots. One of my sons is actually excited about doing it. I'm going to be writing in 2019. I'm going to be co-authoring one with my youngest, and it's going to be about a father and son separated in Seattle, and we're going to do alternate chapters as the father and son fight to get back to each other. And then when it goes into production in Audible, he's going to narrate the son part, and I'm going to narrate the father part. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's definitely a different take. I haven't heard that done before. That's so cool.
Yeah. It'll be a blast. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So are we.
I'm going to look forward to it, definitely. So definitely check out allthetwbrown.com. He has a 15 chapter a blog that I actually made it through. I just wanted to tell you that I'm one of the people who made it all the way through to
Slogged all the way through.
Damn double ending. So definitely check it out. Again, thank you so much for joining us again.
It was a pleasure.
You're awesome. Love the top 5. Love your work. Hope we'll have a part 3 on something unique as well.
I think we got some 7 Days to Die maybe coming up.
Yeah, there you go.
If you ever want to do a thing about 7 days, we can absolutely do a thing about 7 days.
Hey, man, I'm going to hold you to that. Trust me.
I'm there. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, once again, thanks TW. We appreciate it. This was great. Like I said, we'll have more coming down the pipe with him. And other zombie, stories and everything else. James and Jay Dissect is back for 2018. We'll be jumping back into our Walking Dead phase here once it premieres, but we're doing some other different takes on The Walking Dead. Some big news. We have some previews. We have some first season wrap-ups. We have season 6 wrap-ups. Just stay tuned. Follow us on those social medias. Let you guys know what's going on, where we'll be, and let you guys know when T.W. Brown will be joining us again. I know he's a busy man. We're doing all that writing, 10 to 12 weeks for a book. That's insane to me. I don't know if I can even write like a page and a half in that time with size 14 font, double spaced. So we appreciate you taking the time, and he's got other stuff going on. He's got training the dog. We just spoke about that a little beforehand. That's awesome. Looking forward to pictures of your dog out there coming up soon on your website.
I just looked at. I'm looking at it right now.
Fun stuff, and it's been a pleasure, TW. You got any closing words for the fans out there?
Just support the Humane Society this year.
I appreciate it. James, thank you, of course, for joining me again on James J. Dissect TW. It's been a pleasure, and we see you guys next time.
Good night, everybody.